Okay.
So if you were in charge of creating a brand new holiday that the whole world had to celebrate, what would that holiday celebrate? Holiday.
Come on, you got one more.
I can't drink it.
No, you can't drink till it's over.
Would you create whole world had to celebrate it?
I'd create a dog day.
Okay.
A day for dogs where we just celebrate all the dogs and all the dogs can just go wherever they want. My mouth hurts so bad.
A little sweet. A little sweetness to it.
All right, so how you feel?
Not good.
How you feel about glazing?
If it's hotter, I'm gonna need the milk.
Okay.
God, I pray that you help me. Cheers.
See, I'm a little bit nervous now how this is gonna go. Because that actually is leaving a little bit of a burn. Oh, jeez. It's gonna hurt. I'm starting to break a sweat.
For a little.
Okay.
If your pet, Dempsey, could
Yeah.
talk,
Okay.
what's one thing they could say that would completely ruin your image?
I don't know, that I'm really messy.
Okay.
I leave stuff all over the house. Sometimes I'll cook and I'll have like pork and stuff all over my hands, like raw pork. And I won't clean the countertops for a while and it'll just smell like pork in my house, so.
I got some beard in there. Oh, yeah.
Does that happen often?
Yeah, all the
You
time.
got your food stuck in your beard all the time?
All the time.
Yeah.
It's like burning, like, it was reached the point where the top of the tongue and under the tongue is just on fire. What's going on, Bridge students, man? We are so excited to gather online yet again for our midweek hangout. Listen, I want to remind you of a few things before we jump into that. Number one, at the end of this time together, we're going to have a digital small group. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to engage with one another in the chat room. So go ahead and get a notebook out, take notes, write down what sticks out to you most because we want to chat about that at the end of our hangout. Number two, we need to remind you that we have canceled Film Festival. We are just as sad as you are, but you guys keep an eye out for when we can get back together. We can't wait to plan another X for you as we look to the future. And number three, we pray that you are sharing this with everyone you know, that everyone who is feeling isolated and alone right now in their home can have access to the gospel and that we can encourage them digitally. So right now, go ahead and share this if you have not already. We love you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into the hangout.
Hey, just love them through it.
Yeah.
But then, okay.
Your enemy.
Yeah, well, but then, you know, we came upon ourselves so much.
Previously on Hangout.
Introverts.
I'm an ambivert.
If you were to give advice to yourself,
I think the most important thing to me is like being strong in who I am. That's really helped me a lot.
that's really strong. That's really strong. So what about like, in general, maybe somebody that you don't know personally, like in pop culture? It's okay if you answer somebody that's like, you know, that you don't want to know. We cut it out. But is there anybody like in pop culture in general that you would say maybe you don't know personally, but you're like, man, I kind of subconsciously, I'm always looking to this person's music, or I'm always kind of like looking to their style, or like looking to the way that they just operate in general. Like I want to be like that person. Anyone like that who you'd say, yeah, I'm drawn to that person. I'm drawn to their lifestyle. I'm drawn to their personality. I'm drawn to what they do, what they put out.
Cause yeah, I have so many, honestly, because music is like such a big part of my life. I absolutely love it. And so, I mean, like, I know pretty much every single girl my age or not, like Billie Eilish, I love her so much. She, I mean, as crazy as her hair is, like that green, you know, I love it. Like, honestly, I would not do that for me, but you know, she can have her, like, you be you. Yeah. But like, I absolutely love her, like her music, like I can literally just, I will be having such a tough day, and I'll just turn it on and I'll just be vibing. Like I've got, you know, the LED lights in my room. I turn them on the fade, and I'm just like, okay. So yeah, that's
like
a big
concert,
one.
lock the doors.
My mom come in there. It's time for dinner. I'd be like, wait.
That's awesome.
One big guy for me now, his name is Rule, and he's an artist, and like, he's literally like everything that I aspire to be. Like,
I'm not thinking about
literally my age, he makes music, he's literally living the life, he's touring around the world, and like that's like everything that I aspire to be in my life. And so he has like he's influenced me in a lot of ways, like my style, the way my music sounds, like what I listen to. Like he is. It took me this long to think of it, but like he really influences like a lot of aspects of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, The Rock influences me.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yes, Dwayne The Rock
Johnson.
Johnson. Dude, he's just got like this atmosphere about him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you'll see like all the random stuff that he does. Like, he took over like the intercom at a school because this girl asked him to their homecoming and he couldn't go, or she asked him to her homecoming, and then he like took over the intercom and was like, hey, just a quick shout out to this person. Like, he's just got this like atmosphere about him. He's super nice, you know, like and he said something recently about his daughter. He was like, every guy wants to have a son, but every guy needs a daughter. And it was like really interesting to think about for me. But like him giving off like happy vibes is something that influences me.
That's true. He does do that.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, more when I was younger, not so much now. Selena Gomez was like really big in my life. I would listen to her music like all the time, and like even now I think she's a great person. Like she's super sweet and she's done a lot of amazing things for people, and she's also incredibly musically talented as well. So when I was younger, I would be like, oh my gosh, like I want to sing like her someday and be like her, because she just has a great attitude about so many things, and that just really inspired me a lot when I was younger.
Shane?
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
Yes.
Like, what?
No, I'm totally kidding.
Like, make that connection.
I see the similarities. I'm gonna look like him.
Totally kidding. Wow. Yikes. Just kidding. I said you look like a mannequin. I don't know. I think for me, it's a variety of people, probably falling more on the side of less pop culture and more just authors. There are a lot of authors that influence me, and just anybody, honestly, anybody in pop culture. So even like people who can be made out to be a little bit shady sometimes, anybody who uses their social media well, I think that they influence me, because I see a lot of purpose in social media, and I don't think, like I never want to use it as something that is just, oh, I'm using this to show off my life and to show off my highlight reel. So anybody that I see in pop culture who is just super raw and real with their life on social media, I really, like, I love that. I love seeing that. What about you, Jalen?
It really they actually asked me this question in my interview process here, and I said LeBron James.
The GOAT.
Yes, just because his work ethic and his commitment to his family and his commitment to his job and his commitment to everything that he does, he just does it with commitment. Like he's a great dad. Like he will go to his son's game and then, you know, fly up to go play and drop 35 and 10 rebounds. You know what I mean? Like he's just really committed to everything that he does. And I think it's set a great precedent for a generation like my generation to have grown up having him in the spotlight, right? Because a lot of athletes that we see in the spotlight maybe don't always make the best decisions, but he's just always been so committed. And for me growing up, I was like, I want to be like LeBron James. Just his work ethic and commitment was cool to me. So in general, we see influence as almost like, it's like this gravity. Certain people or certain things have this gravity that we kind of naturally are drawn to. And so just like we don't realize when gravity's working, we often don't realize when we're being influenced or who we're being influenced by until we just start to think about it. So who would you say, or what would you say is that gravity for teenagers today? Like what is it that's kind of pulling you in a direction? Like if you were just to drift, you drift to this. Like what is that thing?
I think it's leadership a lot. Like some people just naturally just like have leadership, and like people would just follow them and do like what they do. Yeah. And a lot of it too is charisma, I think. Yeah. Because like there are people that like may not make the best decisions, but they just have this thing about them, and it just makes people want to do what they do, say what they say, and you know, it's really interesting to me, honestly. Like I don't fully understand how that works, but it's fun. Like it's interesting to me to observe that. Yeah.
So do you think people who are in that seat, do they use it more often for positive things or maybe negative things, or maybe they just don't? Maybe neither. Maybe they're just not really realizing their influence.
It really just like depends on the community, I think, because like different people will get like into a leadership position based on like who's around them and who's following them. You know, like if somebody I don't know how to really say this, but like you'll go somewhere and you'll see a really positive like environment, and once you see the leadership, you'll understand why it's so positive, you know. But if you go somewhere and it's a really like negative experience and like negative like vibes, you can see that reflect off of the leadership, you know. So I guess it just depends on where you're at and like who is taking to which leader, you know. I think a lot more people nowadays are trying to go for the positive energy, and like you'll start seeing that a lot more than a negative. But in the past, I know like in middle school, like there's a lot of negative influence just in general with the people that I saw at my school, you know, like, and I had like grown up a lot in middle school and sort of realized that and sort of distanced myself, you know. But I know a lot of people who have changed, you know, like they were that way, but now they're doing well and like more positive, realizing that they're in a leadership position, you know.
Right.
And I think it kind of goes along with leadership, but I mean, whether we realize it or not, you know, popularity definitely has a big impact on all of us. You know, we see influencers like online. Yeah. Like you know who I'm talking about. Like, it kind of goes back to what you guys were saying about leadership. You know, as much whether or not we realize it or not, popularity definitely has a big impact on all of us. Yeah. The influencers that we see online, you know, they're obviously popular. Like, they've got millions and millions and millions of followers or subscribers, where they're on like Instagram or YouTube or something like that. And honestly, like you saying, you know, in high school, I would definitely say that it's different in middle school. Yeah. And in middle school, I know there's a big thing where it's, you know, you're trying to figure out who you are. And so, you might look at someone that has a leadership, or, I mean, I guess in your eyes are popular. And, you know, you might think this is a positive impact. And, you know, as far as, you know, like, I don't know, like, drugs or something like that, you know, they might, you know, like, it's so good, like, it makes you feel like all this other stuff. Yeah. But, and then they lead up to it, and then with that influence, you don't realize it's a bad influence until, you know, eventually you get pulled into that mess. Yeah. And, you know, you do it, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's a feeling inside you that, you know, it's guilt, you know, and now you know it was a bad influence. And then it's hard from that until you realize it, it's hard to come back out of it. Right. And honestly, I'm talking about that because I've dealt with that myself. There's something that's happened pretty recently that, you know, I thought it was a positive influence to where, you know, everybody was making it out to be something really good. But, you know, and after that happened, or after I tried it, it turned out to be a bad influence that I didn't know until after it happened. Yeah. And so, you know, I had to deal with the consequences, and, you know, now I've opened my eyes to see, you know, this is bad influence, this is a negative influence, and this is a positive influence. Yeah. So I'm just, you know. Yeah. Yeah. That's something that, like, really early on, it's really hard to tell the difference between, like, a good influence and a negative influence. And, like, you can very easily get pulled into stuff that's negative that you will recognize later on, you know. So that's something that I've seen too, you know.
You made a good point about middle school too, is like, I didn't realize it at the time, but like now being in high school, it's really easy to see how like, wow, like, like in my personal belief, like I think like school, like popularity is not a real thing, and it's just all in people's heads, and especially in middle school, like there are people that like you look up to and you're like, wow, those people are popular, those people are cool, but like then you just like look back and you're like, well, they literally have like nothing that I don't have. Like you're like, they are just like a person just like me. Why do I look at them like that? And it's like it took me being in high school to realize that, because in high school, like I feel like it's even more like it's not really a thing anymore. It's just like people don't really care about that as much in high school, and it's like you just have your own friends. But in middle school, it's like I want to be friends with those kids because those kids are cool. And I just think that's really interesting to me.
So like, how do we identify something ahead of time? So let's say there's a freshman or an 8th grader, 7th grader watching this, and they've got a lot of things like influencing them and pulling them, and they're just naturally inclined to want to follow these people, or naturally inclined to want to be accepted by this group. What advice would you give them to like how can they help like identify those things that, okay, this is going to be pulling you in a negative direction? Like in your experience, what, looking back, would you say, man, I really wish I would have caught the signs. Like, this is something that's pulling me in the right way.
So for me, when I was in middle school, it was like 7th or 8th grade, I had this experience where I downloaded a social media app, and at that time I was influenced by other people who at that time I thought, oh, they're like good friends, like they wouldn't do anything to hurt me or lead me in a wrong direction. And it just pulled me into this thing where I thought that I had to have it to be accepted, and I would be cool, so to say, if I had it, or if I was like, oh look, I have social media. But looking back now, like my 7th and 8th grade self did not need that at all. And I would just say, if you find yourself in that, like even now, and because at that moment I didn't realize that that was not good for me, or I thought it was fine that, you know, I wouldn't do things that other people did, so I could still have it as long as I set my boundaries. But it's really hard to do that, especially if you're not in a good friend group, for sure, and if you're not confident in what you believe in first, because ultimately that's going to lead you to wherever, that's going to set your path. So you just have to be really careful with that.
That's good.
Yeah, so like with me, like I would say just like listen to like everybody that you talk about your friends with. You know, like I grew distant from my best friend, and it was rough for a while, and then I like rekindled that friendship, and it is, you know, blown, like taken off, you know, like but he was really one of the people that was like, hey, what's wrong, like sums up. And if I had just listened to like take a step back, like,
Right.
that's what I would say. Take a step back every like month or so and be like, look at your life, you know, like see who's influencing you, see how you're talking, you know, like how people are talking to you. It's crazy what you'll recognize.
I think another important thing too is to, like, honestly, like you said, like step back and like just look at the people around you and think, like, if they stay on this path that they're on, where's their life headed? And like think like, do you want that for yourself?
Yeah.
And I feel like some people will change, but like for the most part, people who are showing signs of not having a great future ahead of them in middle school are still going to be that way.
Yeah.
And those are not the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with, because then you're going to get pulled into the same thing.
Yeah.
Shine and I both have had conversations with people who think that people in student ministry, or even the people in this circle, will look at you guys and say, like, y'all don't know the struggles that I struggle with. But most of the time, pretty much every situation you do, you've just influenced positively.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good challenge to say, hey, I've been influenced positively, but I'm open enough to say I've been there as well, kind of like you're saying. And I think that hits with people on a different level. And I think that's the important part of having why we had this conversation, is so that you guys can look at, other people can watch this and say, okay, here's some like leaders in our student ministry. They've been through it too. They've done it too. They're not just talking about, hey, here's me from my ivory tower, here's what I think everybody should do, but more of like, I've been in the trenches with it. I've seen it happen with me. So thank you guys for being a part of this. Y'all are the best. And I think it's gonna help a lot of people.
Man, what an incredible time together that was. Hey, listen, we're about to transition into our digital small group. So here's what we're going to ask you to do. We're about to pose several questions. You'll see them on the screen. And just take time right now to talk to one another, to encourage one another, and share as we engage in the chat room. We love you guys. We'll see you soon.